Adolis Garcia made Houston hurt, all of Houston. As I said earlier today, talking to somebody, but there was some collateral damage because I think Garcia probably made the Cardinals and their fans feel some pain too. It's unreal seeing what he's doing, and it really does dredge up some memories of missed opportunities. And again, I'm not trying to have it both ways. I do agree with Joe Sheehan. Yeah, the Cardinals designated Garcia for assignment at a time where he really wasn't thought of as like some dynamic prospect. He was kind of a middle-of-the-pack guy, and he had an alarming strikeout rate. So the Cardinals, whether at that time you agreed with it or not, they needed to open up a roster spot for 40-man roster spot with Kim, the pitcher that they signed out of South Korea. And they didn't designate him for assignment, but the Rangers purchased him for cash considerations. But the Rangers didn't like him much either. And I think it's important to tell the whole story. The Rangers didn't like him much either. They designated him for assignment before spring training in 2020, but nobody claimed him. All 29 teams had a chance to claim him, the 29 teams other than the Rangers. And when no one claimed him, they put him back on their minor league roster. And then, as Joe Sheehan, cataloged, they had an incredible amount of injuries. And they even moved a first baseman to the outfield, and he got hurt. Out of desperation, they plugged Garcia in, and then he started to get better. They didn't expect it. He started to get better. His plate discipline was still raw, but he was starting to improve. So I think it's a real stretch to say that the Rangers believed in Garcia where the Cardinals didn't. They did the same thing basically the Cardinals did, except then they had such a shortage of outfielders, and he was in spring training, a non-roster player, but nonetheless in spring training. They turned to him as a last resort. Now, to his credit, Garcia made the best of it. But it's really overstated, this idea that, oh, man, the Rangers saw something in him. Oh, the Cardinals, they saw what the Cardinals didn't see. No, false, bogus narrative, BS. They were fortunate with the timing of these injuries, and I give him credit because once he started to really show his potential at the big league level, even though he was raw, they stayed with it. And look at what happened. Now, that said, the bottom line is the bottom line, and one of the reasons why the Cardinals didn't feel like they could stick with Garcia as a prospect in the 40-plus percent strikeout rate and all that stuff is because they thought they were all set with outfielders. That's true. And they sold him to the Rangers in December of 2019, a couple days after they signed Kim. And that was also the offseason where they traded Randy Arozarena. So my point being is for whatever reason, and the Cardinals, again, deserve a little bit of slack here for their decision on Garcia at that time. And I know some of you don't want to hear it. That's all right. I'm trying to be fair here, believe it or not. But the fact is, they were the ones who signed Garcia out of Cuba. They were the ones who touted him to us and the media. And I think they could have stayed with him for a while if they had chose to do so. The same with Arozarena. Do you think they would have traded Arozarena for Liberatore if they had given Arozarena a full chance to really show what he could do? They might. No, but they never did. They never did with Garcia, who needed a lot more patience and a lot more time than Arozarena, who was more major league ready. But neither one of them got much of an opportunity. With Arozarena, I think it was more inexcusable because they had outfielders late in 2019 who weren't playing well or were hurt, usual suspects. And Mike Schilt would not play Arozarena in September. In fact, Arozarena was a game in Arizona, a weekday game where Arozarena was carrying him to a victory. The Cardinals were in a slump. He was doing everything on the field. He was carrying him to victory, and he replaced him about halfway through the game. He just didn't like the kid. And Mike Schilt will curse at me and anybody else who says, what do you mean I didn't like him? No, you didn't. You couldn't stand the kid, man. And I got to believe and I don't know why, But I think a lot of it had to do with, Rosarina, with that Facebook Live thing in Atlanta where Schilt was doing the fake tough guy routine and using a lot of really bad words about how they were going to kick Washington's ass in the NLCS and all that. Okay. The kid made a youthful, silly, dumb mistake, but is that really a reason for the manager to say, get him out of here? See, I think the Rosarina and the Garcia, their situations, I think, were really different. But anyway, here's the bottom line. Before each of them went to seek the true start to their major league careers in other places, they only had 40 plate appearances combined as Cardinals. 40. As I said earlier, and I'm not joking, because I went and indexed all their outfielders from 2020 until now, Austin Dean and Ben DeLuzio combined had more at-bats for the Cardinals than Rosarina and Garcia. Mm-hmm. And that one's kind of harder to run from. And I know they were just kind of fill-in players and all that, but still. And some of you would say, well, don't forget about Lane Thomas. No, I haven't. And he's homered 45 home runs for the Nationals the last 2 seasons. But I don't have any real complaints because at least he got some time. It's not a lot, but he got 84 games and about 150 plate appearances as a Cardinal. And that, again, granted, it's not much, but it's a hell of a lot more than Rosarina and Garcia got. And Thomas was really, really playing poorly at the time they traded him. And they needed starting pitching. They were desperate for starting pitching when they flipped him to Washington for John Lester at the 2021 trade deadline. And Lester absolutely helped the Cardinals get to the postseason. It ain't his fault that they couldn't hit and lost the wild card game to the Dodgers. Now, some people say, well, yeah, but what did they do? How did they do in the postseason? That's irrelevant. They needed to get to the postseason, okay? And their pitching was falling apart. The Thomas for Lester trade made common sense. Now, if you want to put it in the category where, okay, it's still an example of Thomas is expendable because the same reason that Randy Rosarina and Adolis Garcia were expendable because altogether now, the Cardinals overrated the outfielders they had and the ones they wanted to keep. If you want to make that criticism, 100% right. You got nothing to apologize for there. It's fair. Because there'll be a lot of people flinging totally unfair, unhinged, ridiculous stuff. But the bottom line is, if you want to just say, as I believe fully, the reason why they felt okay about moving, a Rosarina, well, they thought they were getting a pitching stud for that. Mm-hmm. And moving Garcia and moving Thomas, it all goes back to one reason. They were in love with the outfielders they had. They thought their outfielders were a bunch of future all-stars. Big-time outfielders. Oh, we can, we're those guys. Yeah, we can move some guys out of here. How's that worked out for them?
Oh, boy.
Since leaving the Cardinals, the two friends and fellow Cubans and roommates in the Cardinals minor league system, Adolis and Randy, since they left the Cardinals, they've combined for 885 hits, 183 doubles, 16 triples, 167 homers, 550 RBI, 549 runs scored, 128 stolen bases in the regular season.
Boy.
I don't think if you put muscles and the skeleton of Dylan Carlson together, you would get anything close to that kind of production, right?
No.
How about this? In 97 postseason plate appearances, 20 through 22, the St. Louis outfield, 97 plate appearances among them. The St. Louis outfield batted .220, had a .280 slug and a .610 OPS, and produced 1 home run, 6 RBI, and struck out 29% of the time. That's what their chosen outfielders that they wanted to keep that made the other guys expendable. That's what they did in the postseason. Again, let's call it 100 plate appearance. .220 average, .280 slug, .610 OPS, 1 homer, 6 RBIs, struck out 29% of the time. And you wonder why they went 1-5 in the postseason in those years? Now, what about the guys that were no longer Cardinals? What about Garcia and Arozarena? They have 161 combined. You got to listen to these numbers, man. I can't show you something on a display screen. I got to read it to you. They've had 161 combined postseason at bats. The two of them together, 161 combined postseason at bats. You know what their combined batting average is? 342.
Oh, boy.
You know how many home runs they've hit? 18. You know how many runs they've driven in? 37. Together, they have combined for a 722 slugging percentage and a 1.120 OPS. Arozarena was the MVP of the 2020 American League Championship Series for Tampa Bay, and his buddy and former Cardinal League minor league roommate, Adolis Garcia, was the MVP of the 2023 American League Championship Series. And both teams led their teams. I don't think the Rays in 20 or the Rangers right now, I don't think either one of those teams gets to the World Series without Arozarena and Garcia. Now, at least the Cardinals have, and I mean this sincerely, at least they have 21-year-old Jordan Walker to build around. And I think Nootbaar is a really good all-around player. But the front office has a chance to recover from maybe some of the horses that they bet on. I think they bet on the wrong horses. And here's another one. Since they moved on to their new teams, again, this all started in 2020, although Garcia didn't really crack the Rangers until 2021. But still, over this 2021, 22, 23, they've combined for 22 wins above replacement. The Cardinals' entire parade of outfielders, and they've used how many? 3 dozen? I don't know. The entire parade of Cardinals outfielders from 20 through 23 had 31 wins above replacement. That's only 9 more than the 2 of those guys. The 4 outfielders that played the most for the Cardinals since the start of 2020, Carlson, O'Neill, Nootbaar, and Bader, combined for 25 wins above replacement compared to Garcia and Arozarena combining for 22. You say, well, the Cardinals guys did better. Yeah, they had about 3 more wins above replacement, those 4 guys, than the 2 guys. And they played, the 4 guys I mentioned that have been the busiest Cardinals outfielders since 2020, they've played 8 together combined. They've played 893 more games than the 2 former Cardinals for their new teams.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, I would hope that they would have more wins above replacement, but it's only by 3. Keep John Mozeliak away from Fairmount Park. Or if he's gone over there, don't give him some money. Say, Mo, pick me a winner. Here you go. You're going to bet on the wrong horse.
Yeah, no kidding.
Huh?
Oh, wow.
I know there's a lot of numbers, but but really that's what it comes down to. They might have been more patient with Garcia. They may have said, I don't know, man, Randy Arozarena's got a chance to be special. If, those 2 guys would have gotten more extensive opportunity here. And, again, I do realize that with Garcia, that was going to take a while. Arozarena was ready to play in the majors. Garcia was not. So I'm noting that because I think it's fair to note that. However, I'm repeating, to go back to where I started, those guys aren't deemed expendable if the Cardinals had made a realistic assessment of the outfielders they were going to go with. You know, and like, who were some of those outfielders? My goodness. Carlson, nearly 1,500 plate appearances. T.O., nearly 1,400. Newt's at 974. Bader was at 790. Corey Dickerson had 3 plate appearances, 300, sorry. Justin Williams had 143. Burleson, 400. Yepes, 339. Those list of guys and a couple of other ones, played a lot of games in the outfield for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals, with the core guys that we mentioned, they gave Justin Williams more of an opportunity than these 2 guys. So I think it's fair to point out a couple things in defense of the Cardinals. One thing for sure about Garcia. But not the fact that, in effect, yes, they bet on the wrong horses out there. They really did. I don't think there's any pushback or debate on that whatsoever.
No, I'll add something on the Garcia thing. He was fabulous what he's doing now.
Yeah.
But he didn't take off till his age 28 season. And I'm not.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so I'm not going to sit here and go, well, this guy's going to be that guy. But let's just let everybody know, Carlson's got an opportunity, but he's at age 24. Are you willing to wait another 4 years for him to? Exactly. And that's kind of where I gotta go. I'm not giving him a pass because I think there is a responsibility to develop players and help them get to where they need to be, and they didn't do it. But you can't wait 4 years for a guy to take off if you were the Cardinals at that point. Rosarina, I agree with you. And you've said this, he was pretty close to being ready to get this opportunity. They just never gave it to him, and they bet on the other horses. Which, oh boy, you just keep looking at it, and it just drives you nuts over and over and over. And I do think part of this too, Bernie, is with the 2 guys we're talking about now that are still here, Carlson and O'Neill. It seems like the organization is so snake bitten, they're not even willing to move on because they're afraid the minute they get rid of him, he's going to take off and we're going to do this all over again. And that may be a huge mistake because these 2 guys may never work out. O'Neill, I'm to the point it's time to move on. You've given him opportunity after opportunity. He just can't stay healthy. And Carlson is very close to being there in that same spot.
In 2019, Rosarina had fantastic numbers, all-around numbers at Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to John Mozeliak about this. I said, how come your outfield's not exactly great shakes. How come you haven't given him more of a chance? Well, we just want to wait a while and whatever, But when he comes up here, he'll play. And that's the number one thing. We want to make sure that, he's going to get an ample opportunity. They called him up on August the 14th. He started 2 games, and he came in as a defensive replacement in the 3rd, right?
Yep.
Sent back down. 3 games. Brought him back up September the 4th. He got into 16 games from September 4th to the end of the season, regular season. He got into 16 games. He started only 2. I don't know. Did I miss the fact that the Cardinals had reincarnation of Ted Williams, Willie Mays, and Tris Speaker out there? Did I miss something? And the one game that I told you about, there
was a game in Arizona.
I gotta find it. Yeah, there was another one where he, I may have. There was a game. I had the sequence backed up. Okay, on September the 24th, he started the game and got pulled, and he was having a really good game. The next day, Schilt probably realized that was stupid, and he put him back in, and he started the next day. He had played a complete game. He was 2 for 4, scored 2 runs. Pardon me. Let me do this again. Mm-hmm. So he played him the day after he had done something really good early the day before. So on September the 25th, Rosarina went 2 for 4 with a homer, an RBI, and 2 runs scored. Okay, that's a really good day at the ballpark, right?
Yep.
He did not start another game the rest of the month. This is just lunacy.
It really is.
It's insanity. How could we trust? I mean, how could you possibly trust people that are making decisions when something like that goes on, right?
Mm-hmm. Kid needs to play. It was pretty obvious he had a little something. They just didn't play him. Well, Schilt didn't play him.
Let me do one other thing here, if I could, and I got time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'm going to...
Texter sends in a good texter. He says, come on, guys. You got to admit, the guys we kept were more handsome than the guys we let go.
In the 2019 season, remember, just keep in mind, I told you that Rosarina barely played in September after they called him up.
Mm-hmm.
Not even after he had a big-time game that led them to a victory. Okay, so who was playing in the outfield that month for your Cardinals? Hold on. Be patient. I know I'm winding down on the show. Hold on. Because I didn't prep this one out. I didn't think I'd be going there, but it just occurred to me.
It was great. It was like Triple Crown at batters up there, wasn't there?
Yeah, pretty much. Hold on one second. The outfielders that got the work in September of 2019. Ozuna, okay, I get that, but he hit 150 that month.
Mm-hmm.
Dexter Fowler didn't play good defense. He hit 183 that month. And Harrison Bader hit 191 that month. Those were the three starting outfielders that we're referring to. The other, Rosarina in that September, he got 11 plate appearances. Tommy Edman was out there running around a little bit. He got about 10 or 11. Jose Martinez started a couple of games. But it was Ozuna, Fowler, and Bader, and they all hit less than 200 that month. And Schilt, well, you know what? In fact, he was on my radio show, and he said, because I asked him about it, so why didn't you play Rosarina more? Well, who am I going to put him out there for? Man, I had guys out there doing a good job, man. 150, 183, 191, really?
Can't take that out of the lineup.
I mean, seriously, it's just you wonder why the Cardinals are in the shape they're in. These decisions along the way, right?
Yep. It's frustrating.
11 plate appearances in September. Hey, we better get him out of here. We got the next Sandy Koufax, Tampa Bay, ready to give us. I like Libby. He's a good dude, but he might be a really good reliever, by the way. I actually think they're onto something if they're smart enough to do that. Hey, before we say goodbye, and I've enjoyed this, and thanks for putting up with me when I was trying to, on the fly, come up with that September song, let's call it, because it's exactly what I remembered, and I was right. And I hope you enjoyed this stat, just seeing how bad their starting outfielders were that month. And Randy couldn't get at bats.